One. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of uh, Delusions of Grandeur. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We are here to discuss a film that comes to us from the year 1940, and it was directed by George King, and it was loosely adapted from Wilkie Collins' novel of The Woman in White. Now, The Woman in White was written originally in 1859, and it was considered to be among one of the first mystery novels, and it was widely regarded as one of the first and finest in the genre of sensation novels. So it's sometimes considered an early example of detective fiction, with protagonist Walter Hartright employing many of the sleuthing techniques of later private detectives. The use of multiple narrators, including nearly all the principal characters, draws on Collins' legal training. But anyways, getting back to the crimes at the Dark House, a I'm just gonna read a little synopsis here.
Okay.
A madman kills a man who has just inherited a large estate, then impersonates his victim to gain entrance to the estate so he can murder his enemies.
Yeah.
So, what did you? Was this a first time watch for you? Um,
Yeah. Mm.
Going into first impressions here, what did you think of the movie, uh, as it were?
Well, the movie was quite interesting. uh, it's uh, uh, it's a pretty good movie. I think the actor portraying the main character really did a good job at making the audience hate his character. uh, And one interesting thing I noticed about this movie is it's probably the first movie I saw where we actually don't get to know the name of the main character. Did you realize that?
Okay. Um, this is not my first time watching this, but it is my first time watching it and paying attention to it. uh, so what happens here? I think I enjoyed it the first time. I think I enjoyed it because it had a little bit of humor. It was a little bit of a, you know, crazy film because you've got this guy killing another guy, and he ends up taking his place because evidently he knows like that he's come into some kind of inheritance. So he does finds out that evidently he's in some kind of a debt. Then he finds out that he's supposed to marry some chick that he's supposed to marry, and finds out she's got some money. And lo and behold, evidently, Mr. Percival, the real Percival, actually, because of his infidelity, um, there is an escaped mental patient, and so on and so forth. So, uh, what did you think about the false Sir Percival?
Well, he was a pretty horrible person as a character. Like he probably had no redeeming qualities at all. Like he is a murderer. He only cares about wealth and money, and his personality is horrible. We see he doesn't ever have consideration for any other person around him, and uh, but one thing I have to say, although I did say it before, the actor really did an amazing job portraying this kind of character.
I have to agree, and I there's something about his laugh that I like. It's maniacal. Whenever you hear a villain actually laughing, sometimes they have a different kind of a laugh, and you cannot mistake his laugh. It's almost kind of Joker-esque in the sense of like Batman kind of Joker-esque in
Yeah,
a sense, you know.
yeah, that's a good comparison.
But I mean, um, well, in a sense, I guess the character Percival, he, for all intents and purposes, no one remembers exactly what Sir Percival looks like. So at first, you know, he can don Sir Percival just like anyone else. You know, I mean, he definitely put on an air of righteousness when he became Sir Percival Glyde. Todd Slaughter did, and for all intents and purposes, I mean he was Sir Percival to a certain extent, although he certainly loved the maids, or should I say, maid.
Yeah, well, in a way, he did like her until she became a problem to him. Uh,
Yeah, she wanted to become his bride. The only thing is, the only bride to be was in the afterlife.
Oh, yeah, yeah, he made a pretty morbid joke when he killed her.
Yes, he did, which brought elements of horror to this tale. Um, so yeah, I mean it's a pretty straightforward story. Uh, the he inherits. Supposedly, he's supposed to be this Sir Percival Glyde after he's killed him, and he goes to wherever it's located. Let's see if I can. Let's see. Uh, Looking to see where it might have actually been. Um, let's see. Okay, so it was in the UK. Just seeing if it was known as any other titles. Okay, so no, no, it was not known for any other titles. Sometimes older films tend to have more than one title. So I'm glad that this one did not change from title to title. But it was put out by George King Productions. Um, it's been distributed in the UK under British Lion Film Corporation, but in the USA, it was put out under Exploitation Pictures in 1943. Um,
Ooh.
in 2006, Mill Creek um, then became the owners of it and have been able to distribute it. But I just so happen to have it on this double feature, and I'll show you it. It's a double feature of Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street,
Ooh.
which also stars Todd Slaughter in it.
Oh,
And
wow.
Crimes at the Dark House, which currently there is a horror host of some sort that I think his name is called Johnny Gruesome, or let's see, jo- uh, let's see, visit Johnny Raunchy Todd. Yeah,
Huh.
for a time, uh, Johnny Gruesome, I think his name was, or Johnny something or. But anyways, there it is.
Oh. Wow.
Evidently, it was. This was the first time it was on DVD, and eventually, I think it eventually went to um, Mill Creek. So let's
Ooh.
see. What did you think about the character of Lori? His intended.
Mm. Well, she was good and pretty good looking as well.
She
And
was played by Sylvia Marriott, who also eventually played the French minister in Never Say Never Again, which was a James Bond movie.
oh, cool. I
uh,
didn't know that.
Neither did I.
Huh.
But let's see, trying to see. Okay, so she played in Patrol Car and The Adventures of the Big Man. Over to William. She played in 2 episodes of Wagon Train. She was a voice in the original animation of 101 Dalmatians.
Oh wow, whose voice did she play?
Looking, let's see, what was her name again? Her name was Sylvia Marriott, and she
Yes.
played both Laurie Fairley and the escaped mental patient chick. So, let's
Uh,
see.
yeah, I meant to ask whose voice did she play in 101 Dalmatians, which was what you mentioned.
It just says voice.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I don't know whether it was. Yeah, it just says voice. It just it says a voice, so it could have been like a random voice in there, but her voice is in it. So,
Could be. Well,
but yeah, kind of interesting. And I
uh,
guess she was Lexa's follower in the Doctor Who series in 1980,
oh,
and
cool.
she was Mrs. Partridge in Empire of the Sun, which was a Steven Spielberg film. So, in any case, I relatively enjoyed her character. I mean, she was kind of sing song with her devotion to her paramour patron, which was that English or that art teacher or whatnot. She was in love with him, so to
Uh,
speak, had already found love, even though love was already promised by her father. Because
um,
evidently that's what they used to do at one point in time. They fathers used to promise their daughters to people at like a very young age, so that they could one day be set for life.
Mm, yeah, well, one interesting thing I noticed is that in spite of the story taking place at a time like that, she was really standing up for herself as much as possible, and I really liked that. And Generally, her character added a lot to the story.
Well,
She
I
was.
imagine at this point in time, at least where the story was taking place, women didn't really have a place to voice any opinions when it came to husbandly duties. I mean, women were to be seen and not heard, at least in this, at least
Uh,
in this time period, where they were to obey thy husband, all that jazz. So,
uh, yeah, that's actually why I really like the fact that she was standing up for herself and
well, it wasn't just her; her sister was standing up for her too. So,
yeah.
if I remember correctly, what was her sister's name? Her sister's name was Marianne.
Marion, yeah.
Marianne Fairley, and she was played by Hilary Eves. Now, Hilary Eves, she wasn't actually in much. At the most, she was in Square Pegs, a TV movie before that in 1939. After, in 1962, she was in a movie called Advise and Consent as Lady Elaine. But other than that, she really did not act in much after this. So I don't know
Oh,
what happened there. I just know that she did not do much acting after that. Now, the doctor is Isidore Fusco. His name, he was played by Hay Petrie, and he's been in quite a lot. Let's
who?
see, he was in Suspense, which was the first movie that he was in. See, just looking to see if there are any. Okay, he was in a movie called Carmen, Private Life of Henry the Eighth, The Wandering Jew, Song of the Plow, Crime on the Hill, Matinee Idol, Runaway Queen, Colonel Blood, Nell Gwynn, The Private Life of Don Juan, Blind Justice, The Old Curiosity Shop, the first one. That's
Hmm.
based on a Charles Dickens a novel. Um, Directed by Thomas Bentley. I think I've got at least one version of this that story. The Ghost Goes West. I Stand Condemned. Men of Yesterday. The House of the Spaniard. The Conquest of the Air. I Married a Spy. Night Without Armor. Well, he was a short little fucker. So, oh, okay. He was in the first version of the Four Feathers. That was a good movie. Let's see. He was Mahdi Interpreter. Oh, okay. Jamaica Inn, which was an Alfred Hitchcock movie. That was in 1939.
Oh, wow.
Let's see. Shipyard Sally, The Spy in Black, Inquest, 21 Days Together, Blackout. Okay, and here's the crimes at the Dark House. But afterwards, he was in The Thief of Baghdad. Let's see. Just looking for something that I might know. Wings and the Woman, Sabotage at Sea. It happened at midnight. They met in the dark. Honeymoon Hotel. Kiss the Bride Goodbye. Oh, A Canterbury Tale. Okay. Let's see. Oh, he was in a couple of Hamlets. But the last two movies that he was in was The Monkey's Paw and The Queen of Spades in 1949. So, but anyways, what did you think about the character of the Doctor? I thought he was kind of funny.
The doctor, yeah. He was funny, and I kind of disliked what happened to him at the end when he
Got the Hangman's
apparently,
noose.
yeah. Yeah, like just when he turned against the villain, that happened to him. That wasn't nice. Uh,
Yeah, he was still trying to get his money's worth out of his cost of actually having housed the young girl who evidently was supposedly his daughter.
oh,
So
wait, the doctor was her father. I somehow didn't realize that.
no, the doctor was not her father. The doctor was the man in charge of the asylum that held
Uh,
the daughter of the original
uh,
Percival.
yeah, yeah, that's what I thought.
But what did you think about her showing up at the place after having escaped?
Well, those scenes were pretty interesting, especially before we actually knew who she was and why she was doing it. Like it was funny when they thought she was a ghost or something like that. And when who was it in the house? Was it Percival or was it Jessica or someone who threw a glass at the window when
it
she
was
appeared?
it was Percival who, well, the false Percival,
Yeah,
who
yeah.
who had thrown something at the window and broke it.
Yeah, that was a funny moment.
So Jessica was, I believe, um,
The
was
maid that
the
he
maid.
had an affair with.
Yep, and the maid was played by Rita Grant, which apparently she was in a couple of things after this movie, but she wasn't in much. But most of this time period afterwards, in 1941, she was a barmaid. So she was a maid the rest of her career.
Oh.
But I guess the I guess this was one of one. Let's see. In 1939, she was in a movie called Music Hall Parade, where she played a uh, Mrs. Whipsnade. And then before that, she was in a movie called Evergreen in 1934, and she was a chorus girl. So this was probably one of her only on-screen roles for this film. And honestly, I actually thought she was kind of pretty. She was a thicker girl. Not exactly the Hollywood norm. To me, the Hollywood norm was had them as thin as rails and boyish figures.
Well, she was okay, in my opinion.
Yeah, she was homely. There we go. That's the right word for it. Pretty enough to fit the bill. But in any case, let's see. So, what did we think about the estate? Um, the surroundings of the home in which Sir Percival, the false Percival, was living. Did did you like the inside of the place?
Yeah, I did. It was a pretty nice house. Uh, uh, I noticed in these movies we have been discussing recently, there is usually a big house, kind of like this one. It's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, I personally enjoyed seeing um, seeing some of the surroundings of the home itself. I mean, I saw that there was a grand staircase, and it was a little dark, but there were some ornate looking things as he went up the stairs on his wedding night. You could see a little bit closely the railing. It was quite elaborate.
Indeed.
So, but I'm not really finding anything about where the. I'm assuming that this film was filmed in the UK. There's not much about um, the where it was filmed entirely. I'm sure that eventually it might somewhere down the road. Maybe I can find out exactly. Um, but evidently, Odetta King was also a producer of this film because George King was the producer and director of this film, and I believe it was George King Productions that was behind the film itself. So the way that this film goes is apparently an imposter is in the place of this lord of this manor, and apparently he's able to successfully at least take up the name, at least until he has found out, and because he is rude and mean to his supposedly future wife's sister, it kind of produces the independence in the two, and he, with the doctor's help, the good doctor's help, he and the escaped patient, he is able to switch girls and somehow try to finagle a way into the inheritance of his marriage bed to Miss Fairley, if I remember. That is her last name. Yes, Fairly.
I think
Fairly.
so.
But the escaped patient, her name is Anne Catherine, and apparently Anne Catherine, in the beginning, well, not in the beginning, but apparently she is the unadulterated daughter that the original Percival had before he went off to West Africa. what
Uh,
what did you think about the whole scenario of the doctor and the mother of this supposed child? What did you think about that situation coming up? Do you think it was a little funny
uh, uh, I'm sorry, you said the doctor and
that
uh,
mother of the child
oh, oh yeah. So at first, the doctor was collaborating with her, and then through her he met the false Percival and started to do shady business with him, and like he was kind of switching sides all in order to get money.
and what did you think of the um what did you think about the artist, the lover of Lori Fairley?
Oh, well, he was
I believe his
actually,
name is Paul
uh,
Cartwright, and he was
yeah,
played by Jeffrey Wardwell.
yeah, he was one of my favorite characters. Actually, my favorite scene was when he when he came to the mental hospital to rescue Laura, and when he beat up those men there in order to get her out, that was a pretty good scene.
Well, apparently, he has been in a version of The Taming of the Shrew, which was in fact filmed in 1929. He played Hortensio. And after that, he played in What Happened to Harkness. After that, he played in What Happened Then in 1934 as Raymond Rudford. And then in a movie called The Challenge, he played Lord Francis Douglas in 1938. And before 2 years before this film, he played in a movie called The Shoemaker's Holiday, which was a TV movie in 1938, and he played Master Hamon. And after Crimes at the Dark House, it was 8 years later where he played in a TV movie as John Ferguson in The Rossiters. So he wasn't in that much either after this. So
Who?
it's interesting that some of these actors and actresses just didn't seem to have um, years put in as actors or actresses. It seems like they didn't have much screen time other than in this movie. So
Oh yeah, that's kind of surprising.
so there was an interesting character in here, which I believe was not Laurie's father.
Her uncle, maybe.
Correct. I believe it was her uncle, Frederick Fairley, played by
Uh,
David Horn.
yeah, uh,
And he was actually in quite a few things. I think
he was a funny one in this
the first
movie.
thing he was ever in was called Lord of the Manor in 1933. But then he played in General John Reagan as Major Kent, Badger's Green as Major Forrester, The Case for the Crown as James Rainsford, that's my uncle, as Colonel Marlowe, The Village Squire as Squire Hollis, Gentleman's Agreement, The Touch of the Moon, The Cardinal, Love Again, The Interrupted, Honeymoon, Doomed Cargo, The House of the Spaniard, which, wait, I've heard that before. The Conquest of the Air as well. The Mill on the Floss, Troop Ship, The Green Cockatoo, Blind Folly. This guy seems to have a lot more on his Adventures in Blackwell, The Avengers, Wings and the Woman, Yellow Canary, The 100-Pound Window, The Wicked Lady, Notorious Gentleman, Caravan, Showtime, The Importance of Being Earnest, a TV movie, The Magic Boat, Men of Two Worlds, The Smugglers, let's see, Easy Money, The History of Mr. Polly, Once Upon a Dream, Island Rescue, The Pickwick Papers as Mr. Wardle. That's a Charles Dickens thing. Martin Luther as Duke Frederick. Sought to Kill. Oh, The Intruder. Is that the one I know?
Ooh.
No. No, not the one that I know. I know one called The Intruder, and it involves a very, very young William Shatner.
Oh, I think I haven't seen that one. Mm,
But it seems like this guy's in a heck of a lot. He was in Bleak House in 1959. as Sir Leicester Dedlock. And that is also a Charles Dickens. The Devil's Disciple in 1959. Another Guy Hamilton film. Let's see. Dentist on the Job, Nurse on Wheels, and the last thing that he was ever in was in 1968, Diamonds for Breakfast, as Duke of Windermere. Of course, another film that he was in 1968 was called A Flea in Her Ear as the prosecutor. I just
Wow.
thought that title was kind of amusing. Oh, he was in One Step Beyond in one episode as Richard Hudson. But other than that, I think that's about it that I'm going to say anything about. The Prince and the Showgirl. I think that one's got Marilyn Manson or Marilyn Monroe in it. Yep, Marilyn Monroe was in it. So he's worked with quite a few actors and actresses over time. That's I guess what I wanted to point out here. But
Well, that's really cool.
in any case, I think that's about it, though. I mean, except I mean, did you seem to think that there was anything that you wanted to speak of on this movie?
Well, like I said, my favorite scene was the one of Paul rescuing Laura from the mental hospital, but another interesting one was the final scene when false Percival kind of brought about his own punishment when he tried to burn those papers, but he ended up dying in the fire too. That was a pretty intense scene, and
That was one of my scenes. I like that whole scenario there for some reason. The fact that he went over there to try to stop him, and then he ended up hanging him, and then he got caught in his own destructional nature anyway. So it's like he put his own foot in his mouth by trying to get out of the suspicion. Although I think that whole group that was trying to get to him was already against him anyways, so he wouldn't been able to get out of that very quickly anyways. Even if he was lighting the place on fire or not, they were still going to lynch him.
well, yeah,
But
good point. But
um,
yeah, it was an interesting way to end a villain's story.
I liked it whenever he laughed, and for some reason I liked that little moment, even though he killed the maid. He was like, I guess you got your wedding anyways, but only in death. You are
Yeah,
a bride of death.
yeah, that was how he said it.
Let's see quotes. And now, just one final word to you, Dr. Silder. Be loyal to your trust, and it will pay you handsomely. Betray it, and I'll feed
Uh,
you entrails to the pigs.
oh yeah.
Or how about this? You always said you were a teetotaler. You're going to have a nice drop now.
Yeah, and he actually had some pretty clever ways of hiding the fact that he didn't really know that house and the people there. Like he asked if anyone remembered him as a boy and so on, or when he didn't know where the library was and so on.
Well,
But
that should
he
have.
found his way out of those situations.
Oh yeah, easily able to do that. What are you waiting for? Go on, find her. What, like this? But I haven't got my trousers on. Curse your trousers. Curse you. Oh, curse everything.
Well, are you reading those quotes somewhere, or have you memorized them all?
I'm actually reading them quotes. They had a couple of quotes here on
Oh,
IMDb,
oh, uh,
but in any case, I think we gone over those. What did you think about the music behind the? I heard organ music. That's about all I paid attention to.
oh, yeah. Well, the music was pretty good. Like it was adding to the atmosphere of like this thriller atmosphere of the movie, as we are in suspense waiting for the main characters
Well,
come
the
up as
composer of this movie, his name was Jack Beaver, and he lived from about 1900 to about 1963. And he started out in Night and Day in 1932 and went to Love in Morocco, Baroud, Midshipmaid Gob, King of the Ritz, Britannia and Billingsgate, Channel Crossing, Turkey Time, Power, My Old Dutch, Spring in the Air, Lady in Danger, Dirty Work, Airport, The 39 Steps, which that was an Alfred Hitchcock movie, The Crouching Beast, Stormy Weather, Admirals All, Foreign Affairs, Shipyard, King of the Damned, Beloved Imposter, Potluck, Doomed Cargo, Everything is Thunder, Wings Over Africa, Strangers on a Honeymoon, Sabotage, which I believe that was another Alfred Hitchcock from 1936.
hmm.
So he's worked with Alfred Hitchcock a couple of times. Let's see. Second Baru, Lupin's he would a wooing go. Dry Dock, Wake Up Famous. Good morning, boys. You are in the army now. Silent Barriers. It's never too late to mend. Wife of a General Ling. The Face Behind the Scar. Sad O'Reilly and McNabb. Dr. Sid. The Ticket of Leave Man. Young and Innocent, which I believe was another Alfred Hitchcock. Yes, it was.
Hmm.
From 1937. I'm kind of a somewhat connoisseur of Alfred Hitchcock films. Let's see. Case of the Old Rope Man, Under the Surface, The Stolen Plans, I'm a Stranger, The Case of the Missing Scene, The Mysterious Poacher, The Queen's Marys, Pen Pictures, and Rhodesia. Treasure at the Mill, The Gold Express, The Clue of the Missing Ape. Many of these are, let's see, and in 1940, yep. So after he did this one, he might have done The Chinese Den and The Frightened Lady. He did Flying Fortress, The Dark Tower, The Night Invader. Let's see, what else? Adventures of Rex. Hey, The Adventures of Rex. I wonder if that had something to do with the original Tintin 10. Let's see.
Hmm.
Giuseppina, The Rescue Squad. So The Rescue Squad was the last movie that he had composed for. But he's done a few documentaries too. So, but other than that, do you have anything else that you want to say about this movie?
Hmm. Uh, I'm not sure. Well, I enjoyed the movie as I mentioned before, and I I would recommend it to people if they like this sort of movies. Uh, this one is worth seeing.
Definitely, man. I mean, there are things to like about this film, and there are things to dislike about it. So I mean, you could dislike the man for killing the victims that are here in this film. I mean, you kind of feel sorry for the dude in the beginning, but actually, the one that I feel sorry for the most was the maid. But
Yeah, definitely.
I don't really feel sorry for the doctor because he was kind of a blackmailer anyway. So he was kind of a not really. He was kind of a sleazy character to begin with, but he was somewhat comical too. So I kind of feel bad for him too. But
uh,
there are
yeah.
some deaths in some movies. You're like, yes, yes, kill the son of a bitch. Sometimes, but deaths are glorious, but some deaths you actually kind of feel sorry for, and I think that
Mm,
the maid was one of those. So,
oh, indeed, yeah.
alrighty. Well, in any case, I think that's all the time that we have for today, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully, you've enjoyed listening to our meamblings on this film. Um,
Yes, thank you
going
for listening.
going back and forward, figuring out the plot and the characters. I enjoyed Todd Slaughter in this film. Maybe we can come back to one film or two that he may have been in eventually down the road. So,
Yeah, like I said, he really did a great job at portraying this kind of character.
indeed. So, in any case, thank you for listening. Have a great day, evening, or morning, wherever you are.
Yeah.
Just whatever you do, do not commit any crimes at the Dark House.
Yeah, of course. Mm, thank you for listening, everyone.
Definitely.